enormous piece of paper, and it's starting to feel chubby and lovely. And this is all really easy, lots of ideas for what to put in it. Junk Journal Pocket Tutorial, a new style step by step. Hello, it's Joey, and today I'm going to make this pocket using book pages and pretty paper. It has 5 little places for filling and it's really easy to make. In fact, of all the pockets I've made to date, this is possibly the most addictive. I'll take you through it step by step so that you can do it too. And this channel's for you if you love playing with paper, but you also want more for your craft time and money. So subscribe if that matters for you, there's lots more fun to come. The main protagonist in this pocket is a map page from this beautiful book. It's an atlas that I bought in a charity shop. It's been sitting in my craft room waiting for me to use it, indeed shouting at me when I come into the room. And it's one of those purchases that you make, I don't know if you do this, you see something you really like and then you don't always know how to use it. So today I'm going to show how I took an item that wasn't getting used, that I nevertheless loved, and I'm going to take a page from it and turn it into a pocket. And that's what I did in making this 5 compartment pocket. I took this book and decided how to make best use of it. I love thinking up ways of really getting the most out of our craft supplies, our money and our time. And to do this today, all you need is a book page, not necessarily this big. Any page or size will do. I'm also going to be using just some little bits of card and I'll talk you through the dimensions. That doesn't need to be pretty, it's just for robustness. I'm going to be using a little bit of pretty cardstock, so it is a chance to use up your scraps. That's going to go as one of the pockets on the front. I'm using some quite pretty and complementary pieces of scrapbook paper, and again I'll share how I measure these and make a little bit of a pocket hole at the top. I'm going to use my new toy. Believe it or not, this is very new to me and I didn't have one before, but I have found one of these in my local craft shop. So there's a small circular punch here and I'm going to use that for the hole at the top of a couple of the pockets. And the other key item to this 5 compartment pocket is a book page of a smaller size, and I'm using one with a beautiful bit of aging around the edge, and it also happens to be a dictionary. So I'm getting the beautiful font here and I'm going to fold that in a particular way and then sew it onto the front. And this is all really easy. I have used stitches, so I'm going to show you how I sew around the pocket to bring that all together, but you don't need a sewing machine to do this. I will also say that you could make this using a good strong glue. So let's get on and fold and tear and stick and glue and then stuff this with goodies at the end. Stick around to the end of the video because I'll give you lots of ideas for what to put in it. So I'm starting by halving this enormous piece of paper, and I'm merely going to do that with a fold and a tear. This will leave me with 2 really pretty pages. Maybe we'll choose this one to work with. That can go on the side to make another. And I'm going to fold this one in half again. And I end up with a folded piece of paper that is 13 centimetres wide, so that is just over 5 inches, and 7 inches in depth, which is around 18 centimetres. But you can use book pages or indeed scrapbook papers of any size, and it could be square, it could be rectangular when you end up with the fold. We can also choose to have the opening either side. It really doesn't make any difference. Just have a think about which of these pictures work for you. And when we decorate it, we're going to fill most of the bottom half. We're going to add extra layers of compartments on the front, and that will cover up some of this pattern. So you might want to think about using a page where more of the decorative element that you want to keep is at the top, but that's just a preference and whatever you want. I'm going to add extra dimension to the front, and I'm using this pretty dictionary. I'll tear a page off and I'll explain why I've chosen this particular one. I've looked for a book in my large collection, and if you watched my video last week you'll know how big some of that book collection is. The width of this is just a little bit less than the width of this pocket, and I just got lucky with that really. So if you do have a page that's too big, just cut it down, that's fine. And I'm taking this page and I'm going to fold it into 3 parts. So I'm going to take the top area and make that the front on this pocket, and I want to fold it so that the area that I see is just a little bit more than 1/3 of the height of the page, and I'll explain why in a second. So fold it, I fold it by eye, I'm not measuring, and that makes it easier and quicker and more fun. I'm turning it over and I'm going to fold this page back so that a little bit of a gap is still showing at the top. Let me show you again from the folded item. We started with a flat book page and I want just a bit more than 1/3 of the page to be shown at the front of my pocket. So I have folded by estimating how much this is, being just more than 1/3, and then I'm turning this over and I'm folding this top part back, and when I fold that down, because I was greedy and had a bit more than 1/3 on the front, I will have a bit of space at the bottom, and that's intentional. And when I've folded this back, I have done it so that it's just a bit short of the front piece, just here. And what this will do is help make the pocket tidier and also easier to sew when we put it together. So now I'm going to add some robustness to this, and that will mean that when we pick this pocket up, and even before we've added extra items, it just feels a little bit less flimsy, and that just, for me, adds a bit of quality to the finished item. So I'm taking a piece of card, and now is the time to use your most ugly card that screeches at you, use me on your shelf and you don't know what to do with it. And I'm going to add that to the interior of this folded book page. So I'll take one of my glues. I'll use a liquid glue, I'm okay with that. This is a relatively thick one and you've seen me use it quite a few times. I'll take my little piece of cardstock, and the size of this is something less than this middle area that you have. And by something less, what I mean is about 1 centimetre less on either side, and about, in total, 1 centimetre less above and below. You just want it to be about 1 centimetre less than the fold at the bottom, and 0.5 centimetre to 1 centimetre less on either side. Smaller is what we're looking for, and again what that's going to do is make life easier when we come to sew this together. Now I have, as a beginner, a small sewing machine that I bought from a local craft store called Hobbycraft. It was £40 in a sale with £10 off, and I don't think it will go through many pieces of paper, and I really don't want to risk it with too much. So what we have here is something that will make it easier for your needle to go through, whether or not you have a strong sewing machine. I just think it makes it easier anyway, and why not make it less of a tough job when you're coming to sew it together. So I put that into that middle section, and I have stuck it down just with a few dots of glue, not with a lot, and I have done it in a way where this edge, this top edge here, falls slightly short of this fold. I've just made sure that it isn't going to give stress and trouble to this third, small third, as we fold it over. And I'm going to add a few dots on there just to hold that down. And a bit like when I made pockets the other week, I'm just using the glue at this stage really to hold that back fold in place. So don't worry too much about putting too much on. So what we have is a front, an opening, and when we attach this, we're going to sew on the sides, or you could glue, and we'll have another opening behind. So you can see how we're starting to build up the layers of compartment. So now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of decoration in the form of an extra pocket on the front of this. So I'm layering all of the elements together before I start any sewing. So it's going to be this little bit here, this little bit on the front, and I'll talk you through the dimensions and how to position that as well. Just pulling out some that I've made before, and as you can see I have been making them en masse, just like Tina Shabby Dabby Doodah makes things en masse. I thought I'd have a little go, and I've been cutting up pieces of my 8x8 cardstock and making good use of those. And really you can just pull out any of those shades and colours that you think will work with the book page you've got. So I like that brown. So when we have our little pocket on the front, what we want to gain is some space so that we can sew around. So I take a piece of cardstock, in this case being 4 inches by 2 inches, and I've found the middle of that long side and just made a little semicircle hole with my punch. If you have a different size of paper, what you want is a piece of cardstock, preferably cardstock rather than paper, and you want that to be about 1 centimetre short either side, and you want it to be roughly, maybe a little bit less than 1 centimetre short on the top and the bottom as well. And the reason we're doing this again is to give it an extra compartment, but to allow more space so that we can easily sew around and not have to go through cardstock, 3 layers of book page and then 2 layers of book page here. And what I like to do with my little piece on the front is give it some shoulders. And you can either put the shoulders on the bottom, and I just do that with, just do that with a little rounding of corners there, and then I will find the centre of this little piece, and with my punch upside down just take that out. So that would give me a little pocket on the front. Yeah, maybe I'll stick with this one so it's quite neutral, and we're going to adhere that with glue, and the glue is going to be run along 3 of these sides. Try to get relatively near to the edge so that you're having this pocket in front, this little compartment being as big as possible. And what I like to do is, given that I'm using a dictionary page behind, make sure I keep some of those bold words that were at the top of the dictionary page. So we've managed to keep the text that's behind upright, so that helps us read it, and that's quite interesting. And the page here is toning with the choice of cardstock that we had, which again complements the map. The next thing we want to do is create the pocket that tucks behind. So we're going to create this one, and this is scrapbook paper that I've used. You could use another book page. I have just chosen again some pretty pattern papers. I just pulled out a number of pages and I cut them into, for my pocket here, 4 inches square pieces. So you can use relatively small pieces of paper and use up some of your items. Shall we have a little bit of comedy? Let's have a fish. So you see, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. I go by colour and pattern, and not necessarily what it is that's on the paper, but choose whatever works for you and whatever's in your stash. Let's use up some of what we have. So I've cut this piece of paper to be the same width as the little pocket element on the front here, and it's also that height. So if this is 4 inches across, this is 4 inches by 4 inches. But really what you want is a pocket that is going to be significantly deeper than this front one to allow you some space to tuck things in. So really, again, you can make that deeper if you want to. And the way that I'm going to attach this is by turning over this front element to begin with and putting glue on this, but only in a particular place. And what I'm going to do is add glue just around this bottom in a U, and I use the little pocket behind to give me a sense of how much glue I want to put on. It's easy to misestimate and have glue sticking out in the wrong places when you add these layers. So I'm going just a little bit short of the area where I want. So I've added a nice thin strip of glue there. And then to get this in the right place, take this piece, put it on the front of my pocket so that the bottom is just lined up with the edge of the paper. And I'm going to take my front piece and place it on top. And what I'm looking for is a line of sight so that the sides of these look continuous, they're lined up. So this is lined up with this, and this is lined up with this. And then all I do is press it down. And by having this placed on the pocket behind, in order to press it down and attach it, I can see how far down this is going as a proportion of this lower compartment. And I can see that this pocket falls short by about 1 centimetre here. So if I turn it over, we can see what I mean. I've stuck this pocket on so that there is space at the bottom, and again what I'm doing is making sure that I'm not building up too many layers so that the sewing machine can still get through it. But we still have an attachment which gives us that extra compartment. So now I've got the pieces in place ready to sew, or indeed to glue if that's what you want to do. And when I'm finished, I'll have a pocket here, I'll have a pocket in front of that blue back one, I'll have a pocket behind the fish, and I'll have the main one here, and of course something at the front. So let's go ahead and have a go at sewing this, and that's really easy. Let me get my sewing machine now. I have my sewing machine ready to go. I'm just going to attach this front now with a little bit more glue before we use a running stitch on it all. So to do that, I am going to only put glue on that extra pocket that we added at the back, but I'm going to go all the way around 3 of those sides. So we're doing a U-shaped addition of glue and putting that on the front. And I've intentionally not added any glue to this piece down here, so none of that glue is going to get on the needle, but everything is now ready in place for us to bring it together. And as I said, if you wanted, you could have had it opening the other way and used whatever pattern you like on the back, just whatever the piece of paper is and how that works for you. So we're all in place and ready to go, and I have the setting on a number 2 running stitch on my little sewing machine, and I'm going to start so that the paper is on the left hand side, which just makes it a little bit easier as we sew. That might be completely common sense to you, but as a beginner I am thinking through every step as I go, just taking it slowly so that I try to get it right. I don't always. So I'll start with a running stitch. I work on slow, and as soon as I've done just a few stitches I'm going to do reverse, and then we're off all the way down and around. now you can see how it works for us to have space where we left it, both on the front with this leaving a bit of a distance and the layers behind. Going as far as I can, as close to the edge, because I think that looks a bit neater. Bit of a double piece at the top here. And that's it. Pull it out. Voila! Ta-da! So we have a pocket that's so easy using a large book page. I can just trim those pieces off, and now I have the gleeful moment of filling it with all of the goodies, all of those things that we have in our stash, the ephemera that we've already pulled together, the tags and the envelopes. So I'll just show you what I've been putting in my pockets, and maybe you could leave me a comment of what you would put in yours. Let's have a go at that. So a few suggestions for what you might like to put in it, but really anything goes. In the big pocket at the back, I've chosen to put a handmade envelope, and in that I've added a really nice piece of craft cardstock. So you could add a postcard, maybe a collage card. I've made some of those before. And I've just made this in a really simple way. I have a video on my channel if you want to make really simple envelopes from book pages. This is the atlas that I made it from, and it just seemed to go with the theme of travel and maps, and it's thick enough, so I've made some envelopes out of that. So that is the right size when it's made up to go in this large pocket, so let's put that in there. So one thing to think about when you're choosing book pages to make envelopes with is it going to be the right size when you've put it together? And in fact, one thing I've forgotten to do, and don't we always do that, is to add just a little bit of a semicircle at the top, and probably would have been easiest if I'd added this before I sewed it, but that's me. Let's not worry. Let's just have a go now. I'm just going to put a little mark in the centre. I'll hold that open. Let's just add a little semicircle. Done. Done is done. I think just on the front is fine. We'll add the envelope into the back, and again with the cardstock in it, that gives it a bit of structure, and it's starting to feel chubby and lovely. I like to add some tags into this larger pocket at the back. I've been playing with mica and spraying things. A couple of gorgeous tags from, I think these are Tracy Fox and maybe the Artie Mays collaboration. So what I've done is use a couple of my lovely little colours of mica powder and mixed those up into a spray bottle, just sprayed it on. So there's a couple of little teaspoons worth in here. And then I added water, and that goes onto both tags. And I've also been enjoying spraying my little punched leaves. So I spray a piece of black paper, and that comes out. I don't know if you can see. Oh, we just got it. You can see a little bit of the twinkle on there, and I think that would be nice if we come to make one of these in a Christmas style. So those with a bit of extra black augmentation, a bit of washi, go in the back. Let's have two. Let's have a couple of really nice journaling cards. Nice cardstock, and I put those in at the front here. So I've got the contrast, building up the layers. I've got just a little piece of vintage book page, and I've stapled on a cute little mushroom. I think red's always nice. We have that in here at the front. Red is always nice as a little bit of feature in any pockets or any of the pictures that we do. And I've just put a couple of, that's really old, beautiful vintage book page that I've punched out. And this is my finished pocket, really easy with 5 compartments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you can see more videos like this. And if you've enjoyed it, then check out my video from a couple of weeks ago where I made these sloping pockets. They're also from book pages, and I think you'd really enjoy making them too. I hope to see you soon.